Hi everyone, welcome back to Owen's Treats. For today's video, it is fall, and so basically what I thought we'd do today is a little bit more of a lengthy recipe. It's going to be pumpkin cinnamon rolls. So, pumpkin flavored, and they're cinnamon rolls. I mean, two of the best things ever. So with that, let's make some pumpkin cinnamon rolls. Let's get into the video. So to make our delicious pumpkin cinnamon rolls, we have our ingredients here. So we have 4 to 5 cups of all-purpose flour, a third cup of brown sugar, 2 packets of instant yeast, 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, 1 teaspoon of salt, a fourth cup of butter, and this butter will be sliced, a half cup of canned pumpkin puree, and 1 large egg. And then to make our filling, we're going to need 1/4 cup of unsalted butter, 1/4 cup of canned pumpkin puree, 2/3 cup of light brown sugar, 1 1/2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. We'll have 1 1/2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. And then to make our icing, which is going to be a vanilla bean cream cheese icing, we're going to have a 1/4 cup of unsalted butter, and this one's also going to be softened. Then 4 ounces of cream cheese, 1 cup of powdered sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, so now that we have all of our ingredients, we're going to divide this up into our cinnamon roll dough, and then we'll make our filling, and then finally we'll finish it off with icing. For our first step, we're going to combine most of our dried ingredients. So we're going to add our divided all-purpose flour, and then our sugar, our yeast, our pumpkin pie spice, and our salt. So we're going to put in 2 cups of our all-purpose flour. And then we're going to add in our sugar. Then we're going to add in our salt. And then we're going to add in our pumpkin pie spice. And for this, you're going to need a tablespoon and a half. Finally, we're going to add in 2 packets of our instant dry yeast. And then packet 2. And then we're going to whisk this together until fully combined. Now we're going to set this off to the side. And we're going to start on our next step. And so now for our next step, we're going to warm up our milk and our butter so it can activate the yeast. So we're going to take our 1 cup of milk and our 4th cup of butter, and we're going to slice our still chilled butter into little pieces with a nice butter knife. And we're going to cut our butter into these cubes, and we're going to plop them into our milk. And make sure your milk is in a microwave safe container, because we're going to pop this into the microwave. Okay, now we're going to take our milk and our cubed butter, and we're going to pop this into the microwave, and we're going to microwave it on high for 60 seconds until our butter is melted and our milk is warm to the touch and not cold. Alright, so working fast, we have our warmed butter and milk. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to add this into our yeast, flour, sugar, spice mixture, making sure it's still nice and warm. We're going to add this in, and with a wooden spoon, and only use a wooden utensil, we're going to start slowly mixing this together. And all you're going to do is really just kind of drag it in and out. Alright, so while this is kind of halfway mixed, we're going to add in our pumpkin puree and our egg. Half a cup of our pumpkin puree, our 1 egg. So then with our wooden spoon still, we're going to continue mixing in everything, and we're going to make sure our pumpkin and our egg gets fully incorporated before we start adding in more of our all-purpose flour. We're going to start adding in our flour slowly but surely. Alright, so now that the dough is kind of beginning to become too thick to use our wooden spoon, we're going to, on our clean work surface, we're going to sprinkle a layer of flour, and we're going to start to knead our dough onto a nicely, lightly floured surface. And I'm going to take it out of our bowl, and we're going to start kneading in the rest of the flour that we still have inside our measuring cup until it becomes kind of into a nice little dough ball. Majority of our flour. I'm going to start bringing in our dough. So for right now, all I'm doing, if you can see, is that I'm just kind of pressing the flour into our dough. I'm not doing anything really special. I'm just kind of making sure all our flour is incorporated. Right. So now that our dough is starting to come together, it's nice and neat. It has a nice kind of rounded surface now when we're kind of not kneading it. And it has a uniform color. I'm going to start going around the bottom of it. I'm going to start folding it in, kind of. And all I'm doing is I'm kind of going back and forth. And I'm just kind of kneading the bottom back into itself. Almost like you're pinching the bottom with the side of your hands. Now that it looks all nice and neat and it's taut on the top, we're going to take our one finger and we're going to press in, and if it bounces back like that, and it springs back at us, that means our gluten is developed, which means this is all done for kneading. We're going to place this back into our bowl, and we're going to let this rest for around 10 minutes, and it should around maybe not quite double in size, but maybe like a quarter. It should get about just a quarter more of its size. So we're going to cover this in cling wrap or a damp towel. We're going to let this rest for 10 minutes while we're going to make our filling. So now we're going to focus on the filling. So I have the rest of my pumpkin puree here, and I have our 1/4 cup of softened butter. And we're going to mash the two together into a small bowl. Okay, so now that our pumpkin and our butter mixture is nice and mashed together, we are going to set this aside, and we're going to go retrieve our dough from its 10-minute rest. And then we're going to start our next step, which is going to be laying out our dough into a nice rectangle, and we're going to be slathering on our filling, and we're going to be starting to roll them up. Okay, so we have our dough here. We're going to rest for 10 minutes, and it actually has almost doubled in size. And so what we're going to do is that we're actually going to punch our dough, and that releases all the air. And we're going to peel up from the bottom, and we're going to put it back on our nice clean surface. And we're going to start loosely forming it into a rectangle. And I'm actually going to grab some flour so we can flour our surface so our cinnamon rolls don't stick. We're going to slather on our filling. So we're going to leave around maybe 2.5 inches room of space all around our border. And we're going to kind of fill in this middle section here. So first we're going to take our pumpkin puree and our butter mixture from before. We're going to take our brown sugar from before, and with our hands, we're going to start sprinkling in our brown sugar. Now we have this nice even layer. We're going to begin rolling. So instead of doing individual sections, we're just going to do one big log of our cinnamon roll. And we're going to start from the edge here. And I'm just going to do about a finger's width worth of our first roll. And we're pushing up from the bottom and then folding over on the top, because we don't want to be squishing all of our filling into the end. Once we get to that closing line, we're actually going to fold it back onto itself, and along this edge I'm just going to do a little crimping. So I'm just kind of pinching this edge together, and I'm going to start slowly lengthening our dough roll, which all I'm doing is just taking from the middle and kind of stretching out a little So now that we have our big old cinnamon roll log, we're going to take a knife, start cutting our cinnamon rolls. Depending on if you want the ends or not, because ends usually don't have filling, you can cut them off, and we're going to aim for pretty consistent rolls. Okay, so now that we have cut our cinnamon rolls, I have 20 cinnamon rolls with me, so I'm gonna go grab a few of my baking dishes. I'm gonna plop those in there, and then I'm gonna explain what the next step is in for our cinnamon rolls. So let's get these guys into a baking dish, and then I'll explain our next step. Okay, so now that we have our rolls into our dishes, I have lightly buttered our dishes too. But I have our cinnamon rolls in our dishes. I'm gonna cover them with plastic wrap, and I'm gonna let them rise or proof for an hour, and then I'll move on to our next step, which should be our almost final step. Okay, so now that our rolls, our cinnamon rolls, are done proofing, they've been proofing for an hour, we're going to pop them into a preheated 350-degree oven for around 20 to 25 minutes until you can insert a toothpick into the center of one and it comes out clean. And then while these guys are in the oven baking, we're going to make the icing that will go on top of them. So to make our icing for our cinnamon rolls as they're in the oven, I have 1 cup of confectioner's sugar. I have 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla. And then I have 4 ounces of cream cheese that is very soft. And we're going to whisk this together, beat this together. You can usually use a regular whisk, or a hand mixer, or a stand mix. And we're just going to whip this up until it is a nice consistent frosting. And then if you wanted to make your icing a little bit thinner, I'm going to add a splash of milk. So now that our icing has become nice and thin and runny, I'm going to set this aside as we wait for our cinnamon rolls to bake. And here are our finished pumpkin cinnamon rolls out of the oven. They look fantastic. I'm going to wait for them to cool down before I try one. And also our homemade cream cheese icing. And so yeah, thank you guys for joining me on episode of Owen's Treats. I'm looking forward to this fall and fun Halloween treats coming up in the next month. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me on an episode of Owen's Treats, and I'll see you guys next one. Bye bye.